So this video has you in the unenviable position of gazing over my left shoulder, and I've shot the video this way because it's very difficult to tell what someone's doing with their fingers when you're looking straight on at them playing a ukulele or guitar or banjo. You can't work out what they're doing with their fingers very easily, and even if you can see their fingers, it's usually covered by their hand. Even if you can see them though, you have to do a bit of mental gymnastics to do a mirror image of it, to translate it onto the neck of your own instrument. So I'm hoping this will help you to understand better what I'm doing with my fingers. And I've used this rather comical title of Playing Like a Spider, just as a little player on that old story of how the ukulele got its name. So someone saw a ukulele player and said, oh, his hand, or her hand, is dancing around, jumping around the neck like a flea. And as you probably know, the ukulele was first introduced to the Hawaiian Islands by some European travellers. And so they picked up on the Hawaiian word of uku for flea, and lele meaning dancing or jumping, ukulele. Now, it's a quaint little story, and some people dispute the accuracy of it, but it doesn't really matter. The point is, though, that idea of the flea jumping around the neck is not, in my view, helpful as a vision for how to play, or a visualization for how to play the ukulele. So I want to share with you another method. That jumping around I tend to call the print and let go. Print the chord, let go, print the next chord shape, let go, print the next one, let go, and so on. And to me it leads to grabbing at chords, trying to grab the chord in time. I used to hear expressions when I used to play guitar, let's have some nice clean chord changes, which tends to suggest the idea of a sort of hygienic separation between the chords, and I don't consider that to be so, actually. One guitar person once said to me, keep your fingers as close as possible to the strings when you're playing your chords. That way you haven't got so far to travel to get to that next chord or your next lead sequence, you know, if you're playing lead pieces. And that was good advice, and I always tried to play the guitar that way. When it came to play ukulele, I thought rather more deeply about it, and I thought, oh, well, if that's helpful, which it is, trying to stay close, would it be not even better if I could keep contact all the time, or as much as I could do? Would that not be better, as long as I'm not interfering with the vibration of the strings? And I gave a lot of thought and practice to that, and it led me to this method. And if I had to summarise it very briefly, I would say two things. First of all, be reluctant to let go of the strings. And secondly, always look for the finger that's going to lead you into the next chord, from the chord you're playing that will lead you into the next chord. It's usually one finger, and it's most often the index finger, but not always. Sometimes it's two fingers, actually, as you'll see later. So those two key principles run through the entire method of playing. Now, you might say, well, why would I want to keep contact with the strings? Well, for me, it gives me a better orientation. I can feel where I am on the neck, rather than have to constantly look down at the neck to see where my fingers are. That then means I can spend more time looking at the song sheet, or if I were playing from memory and perhaps playing to an audience, I can make the maximum amount of eye contact. And so instead of doing a musical performance, you're also doing a presentation, a proper presentation, actually making some engagement with your audience. And so there are two really good reasons really for not having to look down quite so often. Now, I've chosen a very simple chord sequence that enables me to show most of these techniques, and then others we can cover later. It's the chord sequence most of us learn first: C, A minor, F, G7. It's the three chord trick of C, F, G, either G major or G7, doesn't matter which you play really. and the most strongly associated minor chord thrown into that 3-chord trick, which in the key of C major is A minor. Now, we don't have to obsess about this keeping contact thing. I'll only say that the more you can maintain contact, then the more helpful it will be to you in all of your playing. Now, some of these earlier chords are very simple, one-fingered things, and you might say, well, why analyse the hell out of it? Why not just dive into them, hop into them like a flea? Well, spiders keep their feet on the ground. They don't jump around like fleas, and you'll find that playing like a spider, keeping your contact like a spider does on the ceiling of your bedroom or on your floor, then helps you to know where you are on the neck and to make these changes more efficient. So we begin with C major. This is the standard fingering for C major, and my first expression for this, and all these expressions I use are just my own, they're not standard in any way at all. I call this first thing, I call it hovering and walking. Now if I'm playing C major, there's no point having my fingers over here, the fingers that are free. There's no point having them lingering around here. I hover my index, my second finger, over the fret that it's going to go to next. I've scanned the line of the song sheet. I can see an A minor coming along, so I'm getting ready, hovering my finger, ready to put it down. When I go to A minor, I walk into it, just as you walk every day. When you walk along in everyday life, you don't put one foot in front of the other, let go of the weight on the rear leg and hop into this. You put that down and then release your rear leg. And this is how we walk into chords, keeping contact all the time. So hovering and walking I find is very useful. You can walk back and forth between these two keys that way, never letting go of the strings. The next technique is I call the common fret fingering. And so what I'm looking for is a finger that's going to stay where it is when I move to the next chord. And this is the case when I move to F. Because when I play an F chord, my second finger's here on this second fret. So why would I let go of that, like a flea jumping, and land on F that way? No point. So I call this stepping down. So the finger that's leading me into the next chord here, the lead finger, is this one, because I'm saying, look, this is helping me into the F chord. So I step down. This is not walking, this is rather like standing on one leg and steadying yourself by stepping down. So I've gone C, hover and walk into A minor, step down into F. Okay, I'm going to move to G7. I'm scanning my song sheet. I can see a G7 coming along. So I'm getting to look again to see if there's a common fret fingering. And there is, it's here on this index finger. Because when I play a G7, that's where my index finger is. So why would I lift it out of F, go airborne and land into G7? No point. So I can use this as an anchor point, which enables me to pivot around and just let my second finger drift across the string and step down with my third finger. Nice, easy chord change. So far I haven't left the strings at all. I've been in contact throughout. From C, hovering my second finger, walk into A minor, step down into F, pivot around into G7. Now I'm going to go back to C to repeat the cycle. Is there a common fret fingering? What's going to lead me? Which finger's going to lead me into the C chord? Well, there isn't a common fret fingering between G7 and C in the standard fingering. But there is a common string, and it's on my third finger here. My third finger is playing that A string, string number 1, and it will be playing that string in the C. So I can let go here and slide into the C, never losing contact with the strings. So throughout this chord sequence, I don't need to let go of the strings at all to play it. This means my chords can be quicker, more accurate and more smooth. So, if I'm going from C to G7, that's a very common chord sequence. I can slide back and drop my fingers in, step down with those two fingers. People often end songs like, you know, this. And it's a nice quick sliding technique. The flea jumping method, yeah, you can do that if you practice, but nowhere near as quickly as, you know, this. Much quicker. Now, you don't play like that in practice, that quickly in practice, but it does prove the point, doesn't it? That you can be more accurate and smoother and fluid if you keep in contact with the strings. Okay, so that covers the main techniques, which is, you know, hovering, walking, stepping down, pivoting, sliding. It isn't just this chord sequence that you can use it in. Obviously, it would be a very limited value to us if it was only applicable to this little sequence. So I've dug out another couple of sequences just to show you how you can extend this. It's all down to your own practice and your own planning. You can't do this if you're playing in a group, playing songs in the pub or whatever. You haven't the time to sit there analysing it. But when you're practicing, you can look out for, how can I keep contact? Which finger's going to lead me into the next chord? So here's one. There's a sequence of C, E minor, D minor, G7. I found this in one or two songs. One of them is I Just Want to Stay Here. I don't want to go to the party with you. I don't want to go to the dance. That song. So, how can I apply the principles here? Well, first of all, I can hover, because I can see an E minor coming along. And I know it's built off the second fret, off the first finger. So I can actually not only hover, I can actually put that finger down, because this is setting the playing length between this finger and the saddle. So what I do back here is of no importance to the sound of the instrument. So I can actually have this ready for my E minor and step into my E minor, never losing contact. I'm looking for a common fret position, again a common fret fingering. There isn't one between E minor and D minor. Is there a common string fingering? Well, there is. It's on this third finger, because I can slide this back and drop my fingers into the D minor that way. So from E minor to D minor is a slide. I haven't lost contact. Here I've got another pivot from D minor into G7, common finger here on this index finger. And now our old friend, a slide back to C, step in. So the chord sequence and at no point there did my fingers lose contact with the strings. Another example would be movements between G and the A chords, A or A7, or F sharp minor, which is A with the third finger brought down. There isn't a common fret fingering there between G and A or A7 or F sharp minor, but there is a common string fingering. It's on my index finger. So I can slide back to A or A7 from my G, just as I can slide back to G. This finger never leaves the strings. Or F sharp minor, of course. So there's constant contact there. And final example, before I leave this, is it's very common to go from C to E7. C to E7, or from E7 to C. No common fingering, common fret fingering there, but there is a common string. It's this first string, the A string, because that's in my E7. So I can slide between these chords, never losing contact with the strings. I don't need to look down in order to see it. So I hope that's helpful to you to see how you can look continuously for these common fret fingerings or common string fingerings, always trying to being reluctant to let go of the strings, and always looking for the finger that will lead you to the next chord. You can see throughout that none of this contact stopped the string from ringing out or causing any kind of buzzing. Can't create, oh, there's a buzz. But this was the reason why the guitar man said to me, get as close as you can without touching. But you can see from this that you can keep in contact without stopping the strings from ringing out properly. So, the next video I'll show you what I do when none of those opportunities are available to me. There are still other things you can do in keeping with this principle of keeping contact with the strings and always looking for the lead finger.